Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this podcast. Our distinguished guest today is Dr. Basit Riaz Sheikh. He is a computer scientist and technology entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience at C-level executive and top management positions at a diverse range of high-tech companies ranging from telecom, media, to artificial intelligence. He is the former advisor to Ministry of Information Technology and Telecommunication, and he also has a PhD from Cornell University in computer engineering. Dr. Basit is also the co-founder and managing director of Capital TV. Welcome to the show, Dr. Basit. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Nassir. I'm really pleased to be here, and I'm glad that it marks the debut for you in the podcast world.
No, thank you so much. It's a great way to kick it off. Actually, today, artificial intelligence is the talk of the day. I think since Chat GPT came out,
Absolutely.
less than a year ago. It hasn't been that long.
It's been a year, almost a year.
It's been almost a
Yeah.
year, but it weirdly feels like it's been forever.
Absolutely.
You did a talk with the students before this, and you were talking about how quickly things are going to change, and so much is happening since it's come out. It actually feels like more than a year.
Absolutely. But first of all, thank you for having me over here. I absolutely enjoyed the talk with the students. Some very thoughtful questions and a great campus. And thank you for making me part of this inaugural session here. So as I was discussing there with the students out there, I think the speed of change that we're going to witness over the next few years is going to be remarkable. As I explained earlier, when electricity was invented, it took over 50 to 100 years for the effects to be seen worldwide.
right.
The industrial revolution, car manufacturing and all. Before that, the agricultural revolution took hundreds of years for the fruits of that to be seen worldwide. But internet changed that. Within 20 years, we've seen like internet has changed everything in our lives.
That's
But
right.
with AI, I think the speed of change is going to be faster. Like you said yourself, Chat GPT is the household name. In fact, for the educators, for the education students, it has also been sort of a headache as well. Like, how do you address the challenges of, the students using it, whether it is fair to use them
Absolutely.
or not. So, but I don't think that we know anyone in our circle who does not know about ChatGPT or has not used it. So that's the speed of change that we're talking about. And as some of the AI scientists keep talking about, that we're just scratching the surface of AI. It's just like just getting started. So you can imagine how crazy it is going to be, and we have to get ready for it.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I was curious about. You mentioned that before also in your talk that AI is going to have an impact on everything. You've chosen a very interesting combination of businesses to focus on. On the one hand, you are a computer scientist and a computer science entrepreneur, really. You are doing software consultancy, you specialize in artificial intelligence, and you also have a media house. And to some, those would seem to be like an unusual combination, AI scientist and media mogul. How do those two come together? And you feel that there are certain areas where the two fields overlap?
First of all, it is actually a lot of people wonder that, this doesn't seem right. Like,
Yeah.
media world and a traditional media world. You're not talking about the traditional media. So, totally traditional media network, a news network. And then you have the world of AI. So I was an accidental media person. I wasn't supposed to be associated it for too long. When I moved back from the US after doing my PhD, I was supposed to help set up this project for the family, and I was only supposed to be involved with it for 6 to 12 months. But then, how life is, somehow got pulled into this thing completely, and have been running it. So for a very long period of time, I would say I was completely disconnected from the world of tech. Maybe 5 to 6 years of running Capital TV, and it wasn't until I happened to visit the US, and I was visiting the Cornell Tech campus. It kind of rekindled my love for technology again. So moving back, working in advising the government on IT, then starting up media business, a complete disconnect, and that short trip kind of rekindle. You network back with your friends, your colleagues, your professors, and then suddenly you realize the world is changing. And then AI has just suddenly started taking over the world. There was this thing called deep learning, and deep learning is like, you could take visuals and make sense out of them, object detection, facial recognitions, and then there's about natural language processing. Nothing at the same level or efficiency as what we see with ChatGPT, just getting started. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? I've done my PhD, but I've been out of it for a while. Let me start acquiring this new skill set and start learning about it. So I started, signing up for online courses, specializations. That's when I ended up doing a specialization in AI, deep learning, through the professor's name I mentioned, Professor Andrew Ang, who's considered as one of the forefathers of the AI revolution these days. So, and that helped me understand that, oh my God, the world is going to change. This technology is going to change everything. And over the last few years, since I've been into that field, the surprises that ChatGPT or generative AI have thrown at most of the people have not been surprising for me, because I've seen what it was capable of. And what I can tell you on the basis of what I've known, and now I've set up a AI consulting software company, is that we going to be just, amazed by the kind of change that's going to happen. But coming back to your question now, how do I reconcile the role of media and AI? So it was after I gotten a deeper understanding of AI, is that I was like, it is also time to change capital. It was being run as a traditional media network. So back in 2019 to 20, we started transforming capital from a traditional analog ST channel into a more digital AI driven channel. We started focusing on Facebooks, on the YouTubes of the world. We started positioning ourselves not as a traditional analog channel, which was running from, but video on demand, producing quality stuff. And that has helped me a lot, because just over the election days, 2 days, we got amassed 31 million views just in the period of 48 hours. And that has been based on our understanding of how AI works, supported by the digital team that we have built. So 5 years ago, maybe there was no connection between AI and capital or the media world for me. But now they're really, really coupled, and that has my learning from one field and the other has really helped me. And in future, the learnings that I've done from capital or from the AI, I want to now consult with the global media companies and perhaps help them make that same transition that I've done on a smaller scale, but now using the power of AI, we could scale it to newer heights.
So do you think that traditional media or traditional television and traditional news channels will be able to continue to exist for much longer, as in 24-hour news streaming real time? Do you think that's a model that's going to continue to be successful, or do you think that technology is going to necessitate a complete change over there as well?
I think there's going to be a complete changeover. Yes, there would be 24/7 news networks, but their preferred medium of dissemination might not be that same cable network and all, right? Because with billions of devices, like, somebody was saying there are like 13 billion devices out there, gadgets out there, handheld devices and all. And the younger population that we're seeing, especially in the developing world, like in Pakistan as well, 70% of the population is under the age of 30 and all. These kids don't watch things on TV. Most households probably, at least in Pakistan, would only have one TV or maybe at max two TVs on average, but I think maybe one TV. And here you have now 6 devices. Every person in the house has a device, and everybody wants to watch a different thing, right? Somebody wants to watch cricket, somebody is interested in news, others interested in cooking. So I think the medium of dissemination is going to be digital. That's why digital is going to completely take over the traditional media set, and it's also follow the money, right? And money follows where the audience is. What we've seen in our analog media world is that the money, maybe I'll take a few steps back. What TV did to the print, digital is going to do the same to the TV. So, and the TV channel executives or the managements and the board of directors, they have to make this choice that we are not a TV channel owners or TV channel company, we are content producers. So if we make that transition that we produce news content, we produce news programming, but the medium of transmission could be digital or
Or the medium of consumption,
it
really.
yes, absolutely.
Can be anything.
It could be any. That is where you have to make slight adjustments, and boom, you will be back again. But it also comes with an understanding of that the analog TV was very different. It was 24/7. You, for example, one concept that I don't understand, like while operating in the media channel, the news networks in Pakistan, this is concept which is still carrying over from 1970, 1980s, 1990s, is at 9 p.m. there's going to be a news bulletin.
Yeah.
And why does that happen? Because before, those days there was private media and there was only one channel, PTV. What used to happen was that and they didn't even have programming for 24 hours. At 9 p.m. they used to have a khulasa or a summary of all the news elements. Now all the private news networks have followed that thing without realizing that now you're 24/7. You don't need to do a 9 p.m. news. And they spend 50% of the resources preparing for that news bulletin. So these are the things that we need to change. Because if you're not changing them, then we're wasting resources. And the newcomers who are only digital only. So I am right now competing not only with my analog counterparts or the TV but I'm also competing with these digital news entrepreneurs who are somehow only operating out of a small room. Yeah. But they know what the people want to watch.
Well, that kind of leads me to another question I wanted to ask you. We essentially, content production has been democratized. As you were talking about before, anyone can be a content producer, and that's so exciting in so many ways. But what's also happened is it's led us to this whole era of fake news, so-called fake news, and people, of course, being concerned about the fact that editorial quality has drastically dropped, and anyone can sort of spread a narrative, a false narrative, can spread propaganda, and it's that decentralization has meant that perhaps certain narratives which really shouldn't be out there, harmful narratives, get visibility, and then there's also it's also increasing the chances of people sort of living in an echo chamber, because like you were saying, the algorithms will will look at what you are interested in, and if you show an inclination towards a slightly antisocial view, it will start feeding you more and more and more of that until suddenly you feel that that view is prevalent. And it can kind of almost poison your mind. So I'm wondering what you feel about that. Like, do you really feel that the loss of editorial control is something that's quite bad? And how do we prevent people from sort of living in echo chambers and really sometimes absorbing some very, very antisocial propaganda and narratives?
Great question. In fact, I was going to mention about the echo chambers when you started off with this question in the response. So I'm glad that you brought it up. It's a big problem, and it's a real problem. And it's a problem. It's not just that the news networks or the audience are grappling with, or the regulators are grappling with. The bigger issue is that all the legislatures in the world, they're grappling with this issue. The echo chambers represent an issue where people with certain thinking, antisocial views and all, might start assuming that that's the world that they live in, because that's all they're being fed, right? That's how the AI works. So to me, it is going to be work in progress. And like I discussed in the talk that I did, like every problem represents an opportunity as well, right? So what we're going to see as these things are discussed, there will be companies, there will be startups coming to address these issues, where they would do or apply some sort of AI again to balance out or kind of break this echo chamber, right? Where they might want to create some sort of requirements where it just does not narrow it down. In fact, in one of the Congress hearings in the US, that was the question that came up, right? Okay. That how do you address that thing? And where this were able to show was that the Republican audience and the Democratic audience were living in their own bubbles, their own echo chambers.
And that's why there's so much division now. You have people in the US apparently who don't even want to marry each other because they have different political beliefs, right? It's caused so much polarization.
Everybody thinks that their view of the world is right, because when they look at their favorite podcasts, their favorite programs, they're getting millions of
But they don't even have to look at it. That's all that's fed to them,
yes,
right?
That's all that's fed to them. That's what the AI is taking. So now if you look at it, like my Facebook feed or my Twitter feed or X feed, or YouTube feed is going to be very different from somebody else's, right?
Yeah.
Because they're feeding me everything. I hardly search for content, right? The kind of content that I was thinking is fed to me. Like, it's amazing. For example, I was the other day trying to learn how to serve better in tennis, and somehow, because I maybe did a couple of searches on that, and since then I've been like learning everything on that.
Yeah.
This is the problem. How do you break the chamber? It's a question for which would be solved in conjunction by the legislators, by the technology companies. There's no solution to it right now, but I think here AI will play a role, and a positive role.
Excellent. And what do you think are some of the lessons that future journalists should learn? What are some of the skills? You think that the competency, skills, and attributes of aspiring journalists today will have to be different from those of the past? And if so, how will they be different, really?
Again, amazing question here, because this is a problem that we do feel, and I faced it myself at Capital. Some of our journalists who got trained in the 90s or the early 2000s, we've seen that they find it hard to adapt to the digital world, right? So let me share a story, how things used to work when we founded Capital, right? So if there was a press conference at the press club and there was, let's say, a minister information or an opposition leader speaking there, so we would send this thing called a DSNG van, which some people call it an OB van. It would have 4 people, 1 generator, UPS, and a full-blown machine and a really expensive system.
Yeah.
One person would be setting up a satellite antenna link, other person would be laying out the wire, third person would be setting up a camera, and then there would be a reporter talking to them.
Yep.
In the digital age, that one reporter is carrying his own camera phone and a selfie stick, and is connected through IP, through 4G telecom services, and he just puts it out there and carries it. One person doing everything. And then that same feed that used to come through satellite link, 4 people, diesel that you spend on the van and maintaining it and all that thing, and you have multiple shifts for that thing. Now they send a feed and there's somebody else editing it. Now in the new skill set, this reporter who captured the whole thing also knows how to edit it. He's edited, do a voiceover, send it out there. So one-man army, right? The digital age has become very different.
Yeah.
Number 2, another thing that has happened is that before, because in 24/7 TV, people used to have to cover everything. I'm covering every news, even that is not to be aired and all. But in the digital age, what I've come to realize is, let's say I made an audience, and that's one particular audience, one particular topic. Now I focus on those things. Anything else, we discard. We don't waste resources. So it has to be targeted, what your audience is. It has to be people who know. So the young journalist, they should not just be reporters, or they should know how to do editing. They should know how to capture the thing. So they should
One-man army, really.
One-man army solution. And it's going to be helpful for them. Of course, as a business organization, it's really helpful for them, because now I'm looking at one quality reporter who can do everything. But to be honest, it's more helpful for them than for example. We'll save money, we'll be more efficient. But they can become their own podcasters, they can become their own reporters. They don't need me. They can set up their own YouTube channels, TikTok channels. Then that is where, as you said, democratization of news production.
With the associated risks, of course, which need to be addressed as we discussed. But then that's the way technology works, right? Technology kind of marches on no matter what. And we have to kind of address the risks as they pop up.
Yes.
But I kind of feel like it's important that we now start taking it really seriously, because I think some of the impacts of these echo chambers are really being felt around the world now. So I really hope that sometime soon legislators do come up with policies that really define how AI, not just in selecting content from us, but in many other areas, is going to be regulated.
My only concern is that, again, we were having this discussion with the student panel, was that the regulators, the legislators are always catching up with how fast the technology is, pacing, evolving. And I fear that the divide is getting bigger and bigger, right? So I sincerely feel that the technology companies have to take a lead. Like, there has to be some sort of a realization within them that if they leave it to the legislators and the regulators, what's going to happen is that there's going to be perhaps the changes which might be counterproductive, which might hurt AI, which might hurt the technology itself. So what the companies have now started doing, right? The news coming out of Google and Apple, that doing self-regulations. They're
Okay.
making these things. They're making consortiums because they also realize that by the time to balance it out, right? For example, the legislators' knowledge base is here. Their concerns are far bigger, but the companies and technologies is right here. This divide cannot be bridged. So that's where I think if they don't want the technology to be banned or to be hurt or disbanded, I think we're looking more
do
at
something.
them taking something on their own. Otherwise, we're looking at a lot of conflict, which is not going to be good for the technology industry.
Absolutely. Well, one thing that, this incredible adoption of technology across every industry really does is create, job opportunities, employment opportunities, entrepreneurship opportunities. And, but somehow in Pakistan, even though we should be one of the countries that's benefiting from those opportunities, we haven't really to the extent that we should. I think India's software services export is more than 100 times that of Pakistan. So, that is an alarming disparity. What do you think are some of the reasons that, Pakistan has not really been able to live up to its full potential, as a major force in software export, software consultancy development? And what are some of the things that perhaps government and private enterprise can do to address those gaps?
Great. I mean, it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that have
Yeah.
happened and why India is ahead of us. First of all, so I'm going to highlight a few things that India has done right and which we have not emulated, but is slowly starting to get there, and a few things that we have done wrong, which we should not have done. So with India in the 90s, India changed, right? The IITs were given a lot of funding. They started producing some of the best engineering talent in the world. Now that engineering talent went abroad, especially to the US, to the European, to the Western European markets. And they did two things. A, they were able to build that network, which is extremely important for any consulting company.
They became brand ambassadors.
They became brand ambassadors. And now you're looking at the top 100 companies in the US. I think majority of them have the Indian CEOs or somebody Indian at a CEO position. So what does that do? That helps build those partnerships. And a lot of those, and as the Indian economy stabilized in the mid 2005 to 10 era, right, after around 2010 11, most of those Indians, as they were, and we're going to hopefully discuss that part of the cost of living part, they started coming back to India, right? Now they were trained engineers. They'd gone from India, they've worked there, and now they're bringing back. So half of them are in the US, half of them are back in the India. So naturally, that collaboration is much easier, and that's why B2B business, software exports are about business collaboration. So that has really helped the Indians. And also the talent pool, right? The IITs that are produced. What happened in Pakistan, we went through a lot of instability in the political stability in the 90s. And what that resulted was there's not focus on the education that should have been. Private organizations like Beacon House, Alarms, they've done remarkable. But the scale that you're talking about, the hundreds of billions of dollars scale, private universities alone cannot produce that, right? So that is where Pakistan lagged behind. And then there were government policies which do not make it easy. Pakistan has had a lot of question marks about the monetary policies. There's been the countries have been shying away. The countries like the companies have been shying away from investing in Pakistan. The government policies, they have a question mark every other day. Today we're talking about Twitter is down since last 2 days, right? Sometimes they block Facebook. These things, we feel that in the short term, they might be helping us for some political advantages, but in the long run, they're hurting our IT economy because they make the country shy away from Pakistan. And that's what we need to change. Some of the big tech companies have headquarters in India right now. iPhone production has been shifted from China to India. Why it has happened? Because they've opened
not fully, I think,
but
partially.
not fully, partially. But it's a huge leap for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are the things that we need to work on. It's still not too late, but we need to start focusing on how we can change this policy, make it more friendly. Think long term. Stop thinking short term about Twitter ban kar diya, ye kar diya. We need to think long term about it.
No, that's a good point. And you mentioned right now, so I'll just pick up from there about the cost of living thing. When we think about software exports, we keep thinking about it in the old paradigm. There should be big software companies, and they should employ lots of people, and they should develop software. One of the things, and this is an area where I think Pakistan has started making some strides, is that one of the areas that's opened up now is really either being freelancers working from home, or even working for companies, European or US companies, from home in Pakistan, because a lot of these companies, particularly in the tech space, don't actually want you to come into office. They have a work from home policy anyway. So it doesn't really matter to them whether you're in Pakistan or you're in the US somewhere. And that to me appears like an amazing arbitrage opportunity for young people, where if you can earn in dollars and live in Pakistan, you can have an incredible quality of life, whereas the same dollars in the US would barely get you, 3 meals a day,
Yeah.
literally, in some cases, right? And I'm wondering what your take on that is, and perhaps if you have any advice for young people looking to, work from home and base themselves in Pakistan.
I think there's a absolutely phenomenal opportunity in this digital age. I mean, gone are the days that you need to have a relative or a friend in the US to help you land up a job, to help you find a lead. Platforms like LinkedIn, platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, they're making it very easy for you to land up a job. Pakistan's freelancers have been now amongst the top five in the world
Top five, I believe,
for
G.
several years. But we also have to realize that means the talent pool that has been there has been building on their own.
Yeah.
But if you look at the statistics that you still see, a lot of them are still working on the low hanging fruit. Yes, in terms of sheer number, they are there. But in terms of the monetary value, if you were to compare their output value compared to what the Indians are doing and others, they're still far lower, because see, we're working at a very rudimentary or sort of basic tech stack. Yes, there are few who are working at more advanced sort of thing, and they're making a lot better. But I think it is the freelancers have done their work. Usually at the freelancer world, that's the sort of opportunities that do exist. I think what the companies, the corporate world has to step into this thing. Our focus has been on agriculture, on textiles and all. While we keep those things, I think for Pakistan, or needlessly on real estate, right? Like announcing housing societies and projects and all, which really are not helping the economy in the foreign exchange. I think if all our business communities to invest in this part, because see, when a company lands up a business opportunity with an enterprise client, the value of your freelancer also goes up, right? So a freelancer might be earning $5 to $10 per hour or $15 per hour, but a software company might take that value up to $25 to $30 per hour for an enterprise client and give them hundreds and hundreds of customers. Hundreds and hundreds of software developer seats. So I think that's what not has happened. Our traditional families have not invested in the tech space. We as a country, as a society, we believe in more tangible stuff, things that we can touch. Is this real estate? As we all discussed that, the land value never depreciates and all,
Yeah.
right? We're not ever thinking in terms of
But it's a
dollar
very
value.
non-productive sector.
Yeah.
It doesn't create a lot of employment unless
Absolutely.
you're doing development. A
Yeah.
lot of people just do speculation.
Absolutely, and especially the file culture, right?
Yeah.
Where they do, so,
Yeah,
so
it's
the
just-
opportunity is remarkable. For example, if I want to get into real estate, I need a lot of money to buy the land and do this thing. But if I want to get into IT, all I need is my knowledge stream, like
Yeah.
knowledge base, right? And that is for every freelancer out there. That is for every tech company out there. Use your skill set, and as you said, the most important thing, we've been hearing the bad news about like the brain drain that's happening. Last year there were over 700,000 people who went, and every year the number is increasing.
But that can be a good thing if they become brand ambassadors
Yes,
for
yes,
Pakistan,
they
right?
can.
We were talking
So
about the Indian example, right?
But even those who cannot, I feel that there is a huge opportunity for them to, like you said, the arbitrage that's happening, right? They can create that sort of value for them, because that arbitrage value is big. So that is what we need to focus on. And my friend coined this term bread. burn in rupees and earn in dollars. And that is a huge opportunity because even India and China have become very expensive entities for the US companies, for the foreign company. And now the best opportunity that really is there out there for us is the Middle East. Doha, Riyadh, and Dubai. They've all announced to double or triple their economies within the next 10 years. Those economies are already big. Imagine doubling and tripling them. And those economies are going to be now more digital based. So that's an opportunity in our neighborhood, in a friendly neighborhood.
And those are countries which have very large Pakistani populations,
Yes.
even in executive positions, and they're used to working with Pakistanis.
Absolutely. So this is an opportunity for us, for our freelancers. There are multiple conferences now that are happening. There's an annual conference in Riyadh that happens. I know from friends, startups which started here, now they moved their head offices to Riyadh. So that is an opportunity that we must think. So in a positive direction, if you are moving abroad, remember what the Indians did. They built the networks and held the networks while being there. And even when they came back, that helped the country. And if you are working from here, still there's a lot of opportunity.
No, that's a fantastic point. I mean, what are some of the things that the government can do, perhaps, to encourage the freelance economy in Pakistan? It's something that's kind of developed on its own accord. Do you think that there's certain initiatives that the government can take to, encourage the freelance economy in Pakistan?
So definitely, I think government has been relatively slow in, prioritizing things for the freelance economy. I think the biggest challenge has been the payments. How to effectively get the payments from abroad. For example, PayPal. Till date, we don't have PayPal there. That used to be the easiest way for people to get money. But now some technology companies on their own have kind of come up with solutions or not. But still, it's not easy. For example, when you are running a software company, a lot of payments that you make are through credit cards. You're using a lot of software tools. For that, you have to make subscription charges, and for every time you use a local credit card, you have to pay an extra. There is a FED, there is an extra duty, there's another duty. It all stacks up to over 10% of that, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the disparity of the exchange rate as well. So I think software companies have been given some concessions, which are really good. For example, if you're registered with Pakistan Software Export Board, you only pay 0.25% of your revenue as a one-time tax. That's it, nothing else, right? But the companies are taking advantage from that. The freelancers are. But if you have a huge software company and you have, let's say, 200 employees, they're still being taxed the same way. So I believe that by giving them, passing some concessions to the employees as well, I think it's going to encourage more and more people into this thing. The other thing that I feel is that what the government needs to come into, the government should pretty much stay away from micromanaging the industry, because wherever the government goes, it kind of messes up, better than me.
Yeah.
So as the private education system has kind of blossomed, I think what the government can do is like facilitate these partnerships, or maybe set aside certain, HR development funding for the private organizations to collaborate with the institutes abroad. For example, we were just discussing how Professor Andrew Ang of deeplearning.ai, the Coursera founder, has done a remarkable AI program, right? Now, he's introducing open to collaborations with universities and colleges worldwide, right? Some of those courses might cost certain amount of money. So if the government can introduce scholarships for the students at large because see, we have to continue to upskill our workers. Some of our talent may not be ready for this digital age, right? The more you upskill your workers, the higher they're going to earn for themselves and for the country in valuable foreign exchange. And that's where the government can come in and facilitate. So these are some of the things that they are now looking at it. I think the IT ministry recently started taking some of the initiatives which were positive, but I hope they're more than just announcements and something practical happens, but we need to keep pushing towards that.
So, what are some of those specific skill gaps? You said upskilling workers to make them, ready for this this sector. As someone who has a software, company, what do you think, as an education institution, also, for example, BIC can focus on, and what do students need to keep in mind if they want to be successful in the software development ecosystem? What are some of the hard and soft skills that they might want to work on to really be successful
You'll
there?
be surprised. The biggest challenge is not even the tech skills. The biggest challenge you pretty much mentioned in your question are the soft skills, the communication skills. I think the biggest challenge that we face, and I've spoken with many other experts there. I had a discussion with Dr. Sahil Naqvi too, and former LUMS vice chancellor, and he says that the things that we kind of are not that good at is the soft skills. So the universities, the colleges, while they're preparing the talent on their IT skills, AI skills, coding skills, they need to help build that sort of talent pool which can communicate effectively. Because once you put a customer and a developer together in a communication, they need to be able to converse effectively. That is one challenge. And then the rest is deep technologies, right? Right now, most of our freelancer stuff and work is happening at the, I would say, the low hanging fruit. We're targeting the SEOs, maybe the digital marketing, maybe the UI UX, maybe the front end development, which is good. Nothing is bad, but which probably is not as rewarding as the deep tech stuff like AI or some sort of advanced real time analytics and all that stuff. For that, I think we need to, because that stuff is changing so rapidly, our universities need to keep up to speed with them. They need to introduce special courses. And then, more than anything, I think we have to inculcate our students to learn to do upskilling themselves. We need them to learn on their own. We have to build that skill set where they know that after college the learning does not stop there, the learning must go on.
I think that's very important. The whole mindset of lifelong learning, I think, is something that
Absolutely.
students need to have in order to continue being successful. So thank you, Dr. Basit, for being here today. As always, it's a very interesting, intriguing discussion.
Thank you.
We do talk a lot anyway, also, and it's always great, picking your mind and hearing what you're up to and what ideas you have. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We're living in exciting times. Things are changing very quickly. Changes, as always, pose major challenges. But I think for those people who are willing to take up those challenges, there are also amazing opportunities available. For the first time, you can now stay at home and have an incredibly successful career as a freelancer working for a company. In the Pakistani context in particular, you can really enhance your lifestyle perhaps by working in Pakistan for a foreign company, earning in dollars, living in Pakistan. There may be opportunities for us to both help ourselves and help the country at the same time. Or if you decide to go overseas, there are tremendous job opportunities opening over there. Technology is opening a lot of new job opportunities. Of course, the research suggests that a lot of the jobs that are going to exist in the future haven't yet been invented. So I think all of us, whether students, educationists, all of us need to be lifelong learners and ready for change all the time. And as long as we remain adaptable and ready to embrace change, I think there are tremendous opportunities for growth and success. Thank you for watching this podcast, and thank you, Dr. Basit, for being with us here today.
Pleasure is all mine. Thank you,
Thank you.
Nassir.